republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the CPS website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Policy. Anyone speaking tonight during the public input portion of this meeting is notified the Superintendent's Office of the desire to speak and has been provided with these guidelines. Upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of this meeting will also be read and made part of the record of the meeting during the second public comment session. So welcome to this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee. First order of business is to approve the minutes from our meeting on August 19th.
I move that we approve the minutes of the regular school committee meeting of August 19th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, any corrections or comments on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, moving on. We don't have our reps yet. We got to see them next meeting or?
They're going to join us at the next meeting.
Okay, great.
Yep. So the two reps will be here.
Great. All right, any good news to share?
I don't want to take away the thunder from the first agenda item, but we had a, very good opening to school. Things are going well. It's good to see everybody back in the buildings. The buildings are back alive, which is what I always like. So welcome back to everyone.
Great. Okay, anybody else, any good news to share?
I just want to mention that, I don't know if everybody knew, but school started and my kids, I work at home, they're no longer there.
That's good news for you.
Thank you.
Personally.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep, thanks for that.
I think another great thing is when school starts, because I don't have kids in this school system anymore, any longer, it's to see all the meeting notices come in for our PTO meetings and the things that are going to get going with families, which I always enjoy at the beginning of the year.
Not to mention the s'mores newsletters. No, that was-
Oh, yes, how could we forget that?
Very exciting, wasn't it?
This is great.
All right, we don't have anybody here for public comment, so we'll move on to new business.
Yeah, we'll just jump right into the opening of schools. Annually, I just provide a little kind of verbal update of how things went. We had covered a bunch of different items at the last school committee meeting in August, right before school went back into session. And I have to say, as Linda and others have mentioned, it was an incredibly smooth opening of school. It almost felt like we hadn't left. The routines were, very quickly established. It was great to see the staff back. They came back that full Monday for some PD. We did completely building-based that day, a little bit of orientation, PD, get your classroom set up, work with some of your colleagues. So that was well-received in the schools. And then most of the kids came back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You get to go through all of your different routines, get to know your new classmates and whatnot. So that obviously was excellent as well. Transportation went off very smoothly last week with our runs. And I know Joanna mentioned it was a heavy week for new people registering for the bus. We had about 140-ish new people registering last week, which is not, unusual, but it does affect a little bit of the runs and things like that as the year gets going. But no, all in all, transportation was smooth. The kids were happy in the buildings. The staff seemed really happy to be meeting them and getting all the going back to school things out of the way. Staffing-wise, we had, I think I reported at that meeting, just a couple of openings. We've been able to fill both of our openings that were kind of hanging out there. The McCarthy Middle School finished their process of selecting a new assistant principal. I had emailed you about that last week, and that individual will be joining us next week. So by the time we get back into buildings next week, they'll have a full complement of staff over there. And we had a couple of teachers, very last-minute resignations that we were looking to fill, and we filled just the last one last week as well. So I honestly, I don't remember if they're starting next Monday or the Monday after. I think it might be next week. But at least they're filled at this point. We'll get through the next week or week and a half until they come on board, help them get acclimated. The other staff have stepped up in the various disciplines to help out quite a bit. So that's been great. So staffing-wise, we're in very good shape for the fall. The kids are back. All of our capital projects are wrapping up. We had an opportunity to go out and take a peek at some of the projects after our last meeting. We're in very good shape with the new secure entryways at the 5 schools. The structures, even the storefronts have now been put in. They're just in the process of putting the final glass and things like that in. That should all be wrapped up this week. Bill Silver's technology group and the security group following right behind the install, doing all the access control hookups and things. So really, again, by the end of this week, everything should be good. Again, we went to Center and South Row. Those were kind of completely different than the other schools. Those are just about done at this point, and honestly, look like they've been there forever. So if you didn't know South Row, if you hadn't worked in the Center, let's say, if you hadn't worked in the building, you wouldn't know any difference coming in and kind of seeing the area where you're all going to check in. So all in all, really, that has gone, excellent. We encourage people to continue, if they do know that they want to take buses or things like that, the quicker you let us know, the better, so that we can get you a bus pass and get you set up. But very good opening of the school year. We're excited. As Dennis mentioned, the newsletters have started in the schools. It's great to see all the different activities already starting to kind of kick off and open up for the fall. So I think this is going to be a great school year. As an aside, too, the weather has been super cooperative, because sometimes when you're going back and you still kind of feel like summer weather, the buildings are hot and they stay hot. This has truly been like fall weather, and the buildings are cool, with, I think, just helps everyone with temperature and
And
things.
it also didn't rain, so they didn't have to worry about indoor recess either.
Right, yeah, they got to go out and have a good time.
So just to follow up, I ended up going in to Center on Tuesday because they needed people to give tours to the kindergarten children while the parents were doing the orientation.
Okay.
So since I know the building, I went and I took, one of the kindergarten groups around and showed them all the classrooms and everything. And the entryway looked great. And the office, they had some things they were going to be doing internally in the office to move furniture, but it was functioning really well. And like you said, there was nothing that indicated that people didn't know what they were doing the first day of school. I went through the hallways, everything was going really smoothly. It was nice to
really
see
was.
that on the first day. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I'm very, very glad that these entryways are done.
Me too.
And I think, we've been listening to news that made us even happier to know that this is there. So I know that you're gonna look into the follow-up on the security and so on for this year, and I think that's very important, because there's so much that's not within our control,
Right.
but what we can do within our control. I'm glad we're doing it.
Yeah.
Very happy to know it.
It's been very well received at the schools by staff, and I think the parents. I was at a couple of the schools when, this was a little earlier in the summer, some of the parents were coming by for their meet and greet tours, and they seem to be very appreciative also of our efforts. We do take the safety and security very seriously. We continue to work with our consultants to make sure that we're doing the very best that we can to make sure all of our staff and students are safe and, know how to respond in an emergency. So we'll continue that.
And that's something I have to say, I truly appreciate it too. I went to the schools and the door was being held, I was way far away, and the door was being held open. The staff member knew who I was. I knew who she was too. And she closed the door. She didn't wait for me to come and so on, which I thought was really, really so important, because all of us have to follow the procedures, and they do too.
Right.
And any break from it is what can lead to a problem. So I was so glad to see that.
Well, now that we also have the consistency from building to building,
Yeah.
we'll be able to really streamline our whole entry procedures and processing. So over the next, couple of weeks and months, you'll certainly see that become more uniform across the district. So it's the same feel whether you're entering Center or South Row or Park or the high school. We'll continue to work on that.
That's wonderful.
Other questions? Two things. One is, I know you said all the teaching positions. How are we doing with like paraeducators and math coaches and all that? Are we still looking?
Yeah, so we were able to hire the second math coach.
Okay.
So that's good. They actually were transitioned, they're already on. So I forget exactly when they were hired over the summer, but that one's filled. So all of our teaching, all of our administrative kind of professional positions are staffed at this point. I know over the course of last week, they were still trying to identify, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Joanna. I know they were trying to identify some additional support staff. I don't know if you've seen a number of new support staff hires come through. I can get you a report for the next meeting if you'd like. But overall, I think we're in pretty good shape. But obviously, in the end, sometimes we do have some openings we're trying to fill.
Right, and they had, I think today, maybe 5 more support staff started.
Right.
So that, which is really good. And I think they're getting close.
Yeah. On a positive note, we're starting to see the application pools come back. During COVID, for sometimes, we weren't really getting a lot of applicants or a significant number of applicants for jobs, at least on the professional and even the support staff openings. I know like the job fairs that they have, attract some people into the district. We're at least getting a good pool of people to be picking from, so that's been positive.
Great. And my other question, you made it answer the last time we met, but the McCarthy Field, what's the timeline on that for the tennis court?
Okay, so that's running a little bit later than even I thought, to be honest with you. I thought that would be wrapping up closer to the end of September, early October. We met with the contractor a week ago because they still need to do a significant amount of work over there. They're thinking it's going to be more like November 15th as kind of a contract end date. I guess, and this is the first time I've done the hockey rinks, I guess there's a significant amount of effort that has to go in once they put the pavement down. They actually have to go in and cut out the pavement around where the hockey boards are going to be placed, because they have to actually then pour cement where the boards are going to be attached to the ground. You can't just attach them in concrete, which I didn't realize. But obviously, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, but that's just like an added step that adds a little bit of time. So their target was November 15th. So we weren't really anticipating using them too much this fall. I really wanted it to be 100% done for the spring when the snow melts and we can kind of get right at them. So we should be able to do that. The contractor's been good to work with as far as coordinating the site with now, because you've got 29 buses and families coming to pick up kids. They've been responsive on that front. We haven't had any issues the first, 4 days of having kids in the buildings. So that piece has been good. And yes, it's probably about a month behind where I had thought it was going to be. But there was no significant push for anything this fall anyway, other than just letting people kind of experience it. So I think it'll be similar to the high school project where everything will be done. And then by the time we come back in the springtime to open up, it'll be ready for the public.
Right.
Yep.
Right, any other questions on school opening?
No.
Okay, all right, we'll move on.
All right. Well, Joanna, would you mind doing number 2, the budget transfer?
So there's a one-page memo in your packet requesting one budget transfer for fiscal year 2026. And this is for the employees who have achieved a higher degree. We call that the lane change. We had one account number in the fiscal 26 budget where we put the lane change estimate, which was $128,443. And 22 employees achieved a higher degree for a total of $111,846. So this budget transfer is requesting that the funds be moved out of this one account number where we budgeted for it, and then put it into the account number where the actual labor will be charged. And these employees will also receive their higher pay in this first pay date of the school year, which is Friday, September 5th.
Any questions on this? Do you know where most of the changes are? Is it from masters to masters 30? What are most of the
Yeah,
changes?
that's probably the most,
Okay.
bachelor's to master's
Okay,
and master's to master's 30 is probably the most
common, okay.
common.
great. All right, any other questions? All right, we'll take a motion.
Just congratulations to everybody.
Yeah.
I move to approve this budget transfer for the local operating budget in the amount of $111,846 from the salary reserve lane change account to the various labor accounts as presented.
Second.
Second, okay. Any last questions? Okay, we'll take a vote. Susan?
Aye?
Diana?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you.
All right.
Great. Third item is a memo that I'll walk you through with regard to what's called circuit breaker relief funding. So on this particular fund, about a week or so ago, we had a conversation with Darlene Lucia, who's the town accountant, as the town was working to close the books for fiscal '25 going into '26. And the Department of Revenue has to certify the free cash for the town at the end of the year as one of the processes. Indicated they felt we had too much money in the circuit breaker account for fiscal '25. The way that we have historically budgeted circuit breaker is we budget the full amount of appropriation in a fiscal year, because that's an actual, as the next year's budget. So the fiscal '25 amount we received, we budget as a fiscal '26 offset. On the little chart that that I attached to the second page of this, what ended up happening is our total circuit breaker reimbursement for fiscal '25 was $3.592 million. However, if you recall, 2 years ago, back in '24, was a year that OSD, who sets the special education out-of-district tuition rates, they had a very high increase in what the percentages were that they were charging. Usually, you would see a 3 to 4 to 5%, and it was well over 10%. It was a double-digit increase, and a lot of districts were struggling with how to actually pay that year's special education tuitions. So the state decided to give what they called reserve relief to districts. Not extra money for circuit breaker, but they basically gave you a prepayment. So for us, our appropriation of the prepayment was the 408,963, and that money actually came to us in May of '24, so it was booked in fiscal '24. And so circuit breaker funds can usually carry forward for a year. The state did not use regular, like Chapter 70 account funds for that. They used their version of like DESI ESSER funding. So the DESI ESSER funding that they used had a June 30th, '25 date where those funds had to be spent. So even though they were '25 funds, we would just prepaid them. You had to spend them by '25. They didn't roll over to '26. So when the Department of Revenue was certifying the town's free cash, they were saying that in '25, the amount that we should have had as a cap in circuit breaker was 3.183. Not 3.5, because they're not allocating the 408. They're saying that should have been spent. It shouldn't have been there at the end of the year. And I understand what they're saying. It's just not how traditionally we've ever allocated and appropriated the circuit breaker fund. So like in our budget planning for '26, we actually included $3.55 million as the offset because we knew that's what we'd be getting in '25. So the town was anticipating and doing their planning on free cash of about approximately $4 million. So when we got this news, that would actually make, because what the DOR's recommendation is to close it to free cash at the end of the year. It would actually make the city's or the town's free cash like $4.4 million. Like the town wasn't planning on spending the $400,000 because it was earmarked as a school expense. So when we met with Paul Cohen, Darlene, John, Joanna, and I to kind of talk this through, and we think the best and easiest way to reconcile this is to basically have the 408,963 close to free cash at the end of the year, because that won't hold up the town's certification of free cash and everything they need to do to close the books. But on the town warrant in October, they were anticipating having $4 million in free cash, and then Paul typically makes a recommendation of where it goes. They would have $4.4 million of free cash, and 408,963 would be recommended to come back to the school department to be spent on special education tuition, which we anticipated doing as part of the budgeting in '26 anyway. We really can't put the money back into circuit breaker because ironically, they'd be saying we're over the circuit breaker threshold, right? We could potentially put the money in that special fund, but then that actually requires action of the select board and the school committee to vote to move the money out. And that's more of like a savings account that you wouldn't use unless you had to. We know the 408,963 is actually part of our budget for '26, so we're going to need to access it. So the five of us just kind of agreed the easiest way to do it would be to just designate the 408,963 as a special ed tuition expense in the school department, put it in a special fund like all of the other funds would go with free cash. We'll then just expend it, we'll report it, and we'll be done with it. And we're not anticipating this reserve relief issue will come up again. This, in 10 years, it hasn't happened prior to this. So I think we'll be back to just our regular routine receiving and reporting and then budgeting of the circuit breaker funds. So I don't see this being an issue going forward. However, if reserve relief ever did come forward again, we'll just have to be very careful that whatever year it's in, whatever the date has to be spent by, we make sure it gets spent. If we'd actually identified this, prior to the closing and everything, we probably just would have prepaid another $400,000 worth of tuitions because we would have needed to make the fiscal '26 budget happen. It's not an extra $400,000, you know, it was actually planned. It's just more of an accounting where it came in '24 and had to be spent in '25, even though it's part of the '25 allocation that we were anticipating spending in '26, which is consistent with what we've done. So just wanted to, there's no action on the school committee side. Paul will just be presenting this to the select board and then the finance committee as they're putting together the warrant for the fall. And just wanted you to have the background as they have these discussions. But we think this is the best way to account for it and, you know, have the money be allocated back, expended on sped, and then closed.
And I understand perfectly all of what you talked about because we're involved in it. And hopefully at town meeting, people will understand it and approve that money coming back, that we won't have arguments about
Yeah.
doing something else with it.
Right. I mean, we'll be there, and I'll certainly make the, make the case for it. I think it will be pretty straightforward, I would imagine, for town meeting, because the state is basically giving 408,963 as a reimbursement of special ed costs that the school department incurred. So the state is basically reimbursing the town, right, for those costs. And then the town is going to be giving us the money so that we can then pay the cost.
And it's really just to meet the requirements of reporting. That's the only reason it's really needing to move to the town. and back.
It's more of an, yeah,
So
it's an
meant to be school
accounting.
money all along.
And it was reimbursement for sped tuition, and it's going to get spent on sped tuition. I'm hoping it's pretty understandable. Yeah. And it was, you're smiling at me, and it was, again, this was budgeted, you know, so this isn't
Like I
like
said, it
an
makes
unknown
perfect sense to
cost.
me,
It's not
but
an
I
extra
hopefully
cost
it
or anything
will,
like that.
At town meeting as
And we'll
well.
just have to explain that.
Right.
I agree with what Susan's saying because I don't know, when something goes into free cash, it just sounds like it's free cash and, you know, that we're getting a dip into this free cash account for some reason this year. It kind of, you know, but, so the explanation has to be.
The explanation will be
pretty
important.
Clear.
I understand what's going on and I remember that, but just.
Right.
Any other questions or comments on this? Right, good.
Great. I'll coordinate with you if I hear anything. In the meantime, I'll certainly report back, but we'll have a good explanation and discussion. Last, it was literally just about an hour and a half ago that we received the MASC resolutions for the fall meeting. We have our fall conference, the joint conference in November. And so there was an email that went out today. I honestly haven't had a chance to read through it to see exactly where the agenda falls or what day the different actions are taking place. But there are 8 resolutions that are going to be up for discussion at the conference. So I just put them in the packet for you. There's no action you're taking today or anything, but I just wanted to convey them to you. You can have some time to kind of read through them. And then at one of the meetings, probably in October, when it's fresh on our minds, right before the conference, we'll just go through the 8 and see how you, as a committee, want to vote to either support or not support the different resolutions. And then we'll elect a representative and a backup to be the voting members and delegates at the conference in November when it comes to that.
Great. Hot off the presses.
Yes, we were
Yeah, it
kind of,
wasn't even there when I read everything.
No.
it was an hour and a half ago.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
it-
yeah, okay.
we were hunting them down since last week.
Yeah.
And
Diana pointed out, we just got the program, like a program preview today, so we're just trickling in a little, so.
yeah, but we got it, so I wanted to convey it to you.
Okay, great, thank you.
And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Anybody have any liaison reports yet?
Not yet.
Question.
Week.
Question, go ahead.
First high school is on November 11th. Could somebody go to that?
September 11th.
Yeah, November 11th.
Oh, then I
Oh,
could.
really?
No, it's November, September.
Isn't November 11th?
Never mind, I'll look and I'll call you.
November
Yeah.
11th is Veterans Day.
I think I'm your.
Yeah, I
backup.
think I'm on the
I'll
wrong day.
go.
Never
The
mind.
first one would be in September anyways, right?
It sounds late.
I'm pretty sure.
All right,
it's
the school year
September.
just started. Give me a break, all right? I was thinking in the wrong month.
It is September 11th. I'm on their website right now.
Okay, thank you.
Just looked it up for you.
I should be able to make that. So,
Okay,
All
but
right.
you let me know if it isn't, and I'll be able to go.
all right, thank you.
All right, any other people?
Just sharing that the South Row PTO meets for the first time on Monday, next Monday, and the McCarthy and Parker PTOs meet beginning in October. So I look forward to joining them for those meetings, but nothing yet.
Right, and Chips and Harrington both meet next week, so I will be able to go to both of those meetings. Chips on Monday, Harrington on Wednesday.
Yeah. Center also sent me their schedule, and the Council of Schools
Yeah, okay.
is going to be coming up in this month, too.
Yep. Right. Just one I had, we did meet, the subcommittee of the building committee. Oh, yeah. Picking out the designer, we did meet with MASC. We narrowed our choices down to 2 firms, and we'll be interviewing the 2 firms Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
So hopefully, next time we meet, we'll have a designer on board, so.
Yep.
Can you share who the firms are that were,
I don't know, so.
or is that?
That's why I didn't mention it.
is that
I didn't know.
confidential?
So there was 6 proposals.
Okay,
So we actually reviewed all 6 proposals, and then it was the MSBA Designer Selection Panel. After we discussed and voted, we went from 6 down to 2. So 2 were invited in for interviews. AI3, this is just in alphabetical order. AI3 was the first one that's coming in next Tuesday, and then TAPE, TAPPE, I believe that's how you pronounce it, is the second firm. So those are the 2 firms that are in the running at this point to be the designer for the Parker project. Next Tuesday, both will present. It is a public meeting, if people wanted to watch it. It's a Zoom-type meeting, but AI3 will be presenting first, followed by TAPE. There's questions and answers of the firms after each presentation. Then there's an open discussion, and then there's voting. So again, this is the group that has myself, Dennis, and Paul, the 3 voting members, and then there's 13 people from the MSBA that vote. So it's a 16-member board. We only have 3 votes. It's a little wild. But I have to say, on the first side, I think getting down to these 3, these 2, AI3 and TAP-A, were in the top 3 for both me, Dennis, or for all me, Dennis, and Paul. So these are 2 of our top 3 firms, which is great. So I actually would be very happy with either firm. I think they would do a good job. Overall, all 6, quite honestly, could have done the project. The quality of the applications were excellent. I think a couple of them were looked at with maybe more of a negative light, just because they had both been awarded projects over the last month by the MSBA. So there's a question just about their ability to basically perform. And I think the MSBA does like to kind of spread the wealth a little bit when it comes to the different designers. But honestly, all 6 are qualified and could do the project, but these 2 that we're down to were certainly my top 2. I believe they were Dennis's top 2 as well, and they were both in Paul's top 3.
What was it about him that put him kind of in that top 2? Just generally, I'm just curious.
It's a lot. I mean, so when you
Yeah,
look
you've
at
done a
their,
lot, so it's hard to summarize. I'm just,
when you look at their proposal, there's like so many different elements, but like, one of the things you have to look at is like the staff that they're gonna actually dedicate to the project.
yeah.
Their years of experience, because they're gonna commit to that group. So if they're awarded the project, those are the people you're working with. They can't have John present and do a great job at the presentation, and then all of a sudden Jay's assigned the project in the field, right? So you're actually kind of selling your project team, so that's a huge thing. You want to take a look at their track record, specifically building middle schools. So that was something, a lot of these firms do not only schools, but they might do other commercial properties. They might do, fire stations, municipal buildings, private buildings. So real experience working with schools, and middle schools in particular was important. Each of them have a little bit of a different approach to engaging the community in like what the discussion is going to be like, what the building should in the end really kind of serve. So oftentimes, like, it was really important for me, and I think for Dennis and Paul as well, that we had a group that really wanted to come in and work with us and not have any preconceived notions about what they're going to design, but they want to actually hear from us. They want to have a lot of community input about what should go into this building, because we're building a building that's going to serve the next 50 to 75 years. We don't want a boilerplate type building. We want someone who's going to really get to know and understand Chelmsford and what our unique needs are, what our vision for the school is. That was really important. There's a component of like financial experience on projects, and how many projects that they manage actually come in on time, on budget. What do cost overrun percentages typically look like on their projects? A lot, you have to be leery sometimes of designers that like over-design or over-engineer a project. And then in the end, once they leave, as a community, we have to make sure that that building can still be operationalized and be operated every day. We don't want systems that are so complex that our own staff can't operate them, so you have to, take that into consideration. I'm just hitting the surface, but like, there's a lot of different components that you really have to weigh and.
And those two, I think, reading their proposals, both those companies spent some time looking at what we're trying to do, not just build a building, but also deal with overpopulation at the lower grade levels and the fact we might have to do different grade configurations and, so I thought, that's.
They're flexible.
Yeah, they were very flexible. and willing to be-
Yeah, to Dennis's point, both actually, because we have the three different options that we have to fully vet out, both basically talked about how they would even go about under the three different scenarios. Some firms might have just picked a scenario to explain it, but they really were pretty comprehensive in how they would look at it. They'd already looked at our sites that we were looking at, identified like pros and cons. They were both of them were very thorough. So like I said, we can't go wrong with either. And we'll have to see what happens next Tuesday, but I was very happy to get to this point. And yes, by the time we get together at the next meeting, we'll have a designer on board, and then the work is going to begin.
It's really exciting.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of fun. A lot of work, but it's a lot
I
of fun.
think you think it's a lot of fun. Not everybody thinks it's fun. I think it's fun.
It's fun.
I think all-
It's fun.
One of those things is fun and be happy when it's done.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Jay can retire and I can finally get off the school committee someday.
Something to think about.
Something to think about.
Everybody needs goals.
They do.
Range goals, long-term goals.
Long-term goals.
All right, anybody have any new items?
Question, if I can, for future items. I don't remember, when do we set our goals and the superintendent's
next
goals and so
month,
on?
yeah.
And then, because that last year, I remember, led to the agenda for presentations and so on.
So we're working with DM now to kind of, on their end, firm up the schedule for the year for like the group presentations.
Okay.
And we're finalizing all of our kind of draft goals, each of the 5 different categories. Maggie had her baby, so she had her baby early. They're in the middle of transitioning from Maggie to test Hannah, who's going to be working with us over the next month. So we just want to actually have that schedule be finalized. I think it's going to be finalized by the end of September. So we're going to probably start taking a look at some draft goals, either at the next meeting, in the first meeting in October, or at the latest, the first meeting in October, and wrapping up the second meeting in October.
Okay.
So we will be done in October, kind of setting our goals for the year. You will have a draft schedule for those meetings, like when we meet as a group, by the end of September. So we're already throwing around dates that seem to work for folks, and then that work will really begin in earnest.
Okay.
Yep, we're getting there.
All right, any other?
I'm sorry, I'm just following up because I'm a little, are you talking about the goals for the broad district strategic plan? Because I don't know if Maria was asking about that or about our school committee goals, because we,
School committee goals, but
Yeah.
They're all linked together.
so
Yeah.
we're waiting on, I'm just confirming we wait on one to be set before
Correct.
we set ours. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, because we usually take the strategic plan goals and then do little iterations of it that are like more focused for the school committee. So the strategic plan stuff's all kind of coming together really within by the end of September.
Yeah, I was just making sure I kind of got
Yep,
the
and
sequence
then
in
that
my
will
head.
kind of weave into the school committee goals.
Yeah, but I think Diana's questions are really good, because one of the things I was thinking about is, we have, in the strategic plan meetings, we haven't really had, okay, what are we gonna do as goals for revamping? Or looking at it again for
Right.
what we're gonna do in the coming. And a couple of things we've been talking about throughout the year, for example, the policies. Right, the 2 policies on,
Yep.
one AI, the other one on the electronics. Trying to figure that out, and how do those come into, they come into the goals.
Sure,
I think would be important and something I want to watch out for, so
okay.
just,
No, I get you. And like something on that, like even just on the policy work, like the policy work may not be completely aligned to the strategic plan, but that is still like a significant area for the school committee. So when we're doing like school committee goals, you could always have just a goal that relates to like some policy work you want to
Okay.
do over the course of this year. That's fine, because
Because
that's not,
separate from what.
it's not
the
counter to anything we're
faculty will be
doing.
doing.
Right.
yeah.
But that could be like school committee work, right? So we definitely can do that together. And if I misunderstood, I appreciate you clarifying. But the strategic plan stuff should happen. That'll kind of drive a little bit of the work on the school committee goals. But then you can still have a little bit of extras
Great.
at a school committee
'cause-
specific.
It does just feel a little later than last year in terms of when we're setting, I feel like we set our goals by this time last year, but I might be wrong.
I think it was in September.
Okay.
So we're
Yeah,
not too far off.
Sometime in September, but this has moved along so smoothly
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, okay, what time of the year are
Well,
we in?
we're a week early, though. The September meeting dates were a week later last year, just the way the calendar fell. Like, to be meeting on September 2nd is very early. I don't think our first meeting was until the 8th last year. And then it was,
right.
in the 20s. So we were just a little bit further along. Because, like we did as an admin team, spend some time, obviously, looking at the goals from last year, the review, what worked, what we want to tweak. So we have some draft stuff in progress. So we need to kind of have that meeting with a larger group to get buy-in, and then finalize those, and then get working on the school committee. And then my goals are kind of dependent on that, too.
Right, I get that.
Okay.
We'll get there very soon.
Go ahead.
I have a request for a future meeting in the not-too-distant future. Since we've talked about looking into possibly developing policies about AI, I'd like to hear, I know Bill Silver had mentioned that at the end of the school year, he mentioned that this school year, there's going to be a lot of professional development for the staff on AI use. So I'd like to hear what that is before we start to talk about what our policies might be.
Agreed.
Yeah, we were talking about that before, that maybe
Yeah,
doing something next
I'd like to
meeting.
hear the PD about it, yeah.
Yep, we're
That sounds great.
actually discussing that, yep.
I did get your email right before this
Okay,
meeting,
yeah,
too,
yeah.
and I will follow up with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all part of the same
Yep.
thing, just trying to get the information.
Yeah, I wondered if there was an update on the school that has sent us an application to potentially open a school in Chelmsford, an independent school, and if there has been any, since the school year has started for us, if there has been any communication about what their intentions are in terms of opening, or if they're postponing or anything.
I don't completely know. So where it stands now is I had originally sent them the dates of all of our summer meetings to be able to present like their full packet for review and then ultimately hopefully approval. After the last meeting, when we didn't receive the packet, I just reached out to say, here's our next meeting coming up, here's the date we would need to receive stuff, which was last Thursday, just because we had to post early because of the holiday and the 48-hour posting notice. But we didn't receive anything by Thursday, so I didn't put anything on the agenda. Friday, the individual from the school did reach out to just indicate that they had a personal situation that they were dealing with, that they would get us information as soon as possible. And I did indicate, well, we've kind of missed the date for this school committee meeting, so the next one is going to be whatever the date is, our next meeting, when they had to get stuff to me. They indicated that they would, they intended to do that, and that as a board, they were going to be meeting to kind of figure out exactly what their strategy for potentially opening was, or dates and things like that. I replied and just said, I appreciate knowing that. Could you please just tell me now, though, because like our Chelmsford Public Schools are open for the year and kids have to be in school. Are you even contemplating enrolling, or has there been any interest from like Chelmsford Public Schools, families from this? I just don't want a kid sitting at home, hoping that the school is going to open. And she replied back and said that there has been obviously interest, that they didn't have any current Chelmsford Public School students on the pending or accepted list, that most of it was homeschool students that they were considering doing something with for the year, or non-Chelmsford students. So
They could enroll from other districts.
they could enroll from other districts. So that made me feel a little bit better, knowing that like there's no Chelmsford family kind of just sitting home hoping that something happens. At the same time, whether you're in another district, kind of waiting to see, those transitions are just very disruptive at the beginning of a school year. So they did indicate that they would have information at our next meeting for us. So as soon as I get it, even if it's before the meeting, because it's a lengthy package, I'll send it out to you ahead of time so that you could like start to review it. And hopefully at that point, if we have the package and we have questions, and depending where it goes, I guess they're going to go back to their board and kind of figure out a strategy for when they might open or how they may open. But that's the most I know.
And it sounds like then there's no concerns that they are operating without us having approved them or anything.
Well, they have been very consistent. I have been firm in that they cannot operate, they cannot actually enroll until the school committee is approved. And in several correspondence back, they've acknowledged that they understand that, and that they're not operating, and they have not formally enrolled students. They just have potentials.
That's great. I just, thinking about the fact that last we knew they didn't have an occupancy permit, I want to make sure this building is safe before students
Right.
are there and things like that.
Right.
They'll say they decide they're gonna start in October. Do they have like, is there a certain number of days that they have to have? I know not 180 probably, but,
I truly don't know.
to
I
be
mean,
approved by us, you know, if it's open in October and they're gonna only get 150 days in, you know, is that not meeting the requirements that we need to be approved?
My understanding, I do not believe independent schools have exact numbers of days that they need to hit, or even, as long as they essentially could be considered providing a comparable level of academic experience, enough to be approved by the local school committee. They're not beholden to schedules. In fact, I mean, I know you work at a school that may or may not follow those calendars, but I know I worked at an independent school several years ago that did not make up snow days, started a full week later than the public schools in the district they were in, ended a full week earlier than the public school
I
district.
just didn't know if there was a cutoff, like, you know,
Yeah.
if they're not starting until November, whatever.
At the time, I was told there was not,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
I honestly don't know enough about the, this whole private school process. I would think that Desi would think if a school's not opening until November, that children are enrolled somewhere else, satisfying the requirement up until that point, and then at such time that they opened up, you know, from that point forward, that they would be attending there. I don't know. I mean, I can try to inquire for you. I don't know at this point, you know, exactly what their timeline is, if they're gonna even get off the ground. So I don't want to put like a ton of time into it until we really have some kind of a package to even respond to.
Great.
But I am hopeful that'll be next week. And like I said, if it comes in early, I'll send it to you in advance just so you can start to get an early read on it. There weren't too many things that they still had to address, but I mean, there were some pretty big ones.
But they may need to address how they're going to meet the academic criteria for a year if they're not really having their students for the year. How are they going to address that? And I
If-
also would like to know that.
Yeah, I can inquire with Desi.
Yeah.
You know? Okay.
All right, any other things? Okay, if there are no further new items, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.